travel at speeds pushing 200 miles per hour. The very best drivers in the world putting their lives on the line every week. It's time to get the lowdown on this week's contenders, plus a look at the key driver matchups. Right now on Gone Racin.
Welcome in, everybody, to the fabulous VSiN studio at the South Point Casino. I am Brendan Gaughan. he is Jeff Motley looking for a microphone because
the microphone down, and now we got to go.
They're fancy. See, all these other VSiN shows now, they've gone real fancy on us. They get to have IFBs, and they're talking to the studio downstairs. We're not that fancy around here. We are, just in studio, and so we have to have our own mics.
You and I are struggling today. You showed up with your shirt inside out, and I forget I need a microphone to talk on the radio.
So we, it's been interesting. We've had an interesting week with Gone Racing. First, we had great races. Jeff Motley, by the way, now with mic in hand, and Brendan Gaughan at the South Point in the VSiN studio. We're going to be talking about Atlanta, Martinsville, which just happened, previewing Homestead-Miami, which is this weekend. So that's cool. But yeah. First, we want to start the show by saying our producer, Isaiah, who's been with us the last couple weeks since we came back.
Jeff, under the weather this
what
week.
happens when you absolutely kick the stars' butts?
Well, our previous producer, Ann, started kicking our butts, so she's gone.
She had two broken legs. She faded a little on that, but she didn't get the message.
I mean, you must have an Uncle Guido.
I'm Irish, we'll leave that alone.
Okay.
But, we definitely we did the axe to Ann and even Jorge before, we kept him around longer
because Jorge couldn't get any picks right.
Well, because he was doing like IndyCar and Formula One picks.
Yeah, and he didn't get those right
so
either.
Isaiah last week absolutely crushed us.
And now Isaiah's not with us this week.
Yeah, and Isaiah's not with us this week.
He's a little under the weather.
So, and I've been told we cannot throw. Are we allowed to even mention her name? Are we allowed to talk about her? She's shaking her head.
Our producer for this week?
Yeah.
We're going to say it's Karina.
We can say her name. It's okay.
We say this week.
She's still shaking her name.
She doesn't want to be on the air, but we're happy to have her this week.
Technically they're the ones in charge, but I know there's a camera over there.
She's already given us more information than Isaiah gave us last week.
Well, I mean, I think,
and we're expecting him to be listening to this later on today.
I hope he is. Hopefully, Isaiah, you are feeling okay, and we'll be back with us soon. Not too soon to keep kicking our butts, but apparently we're going to give Karina a shot this week.
Absolutely, but get well soon, Isaiah.
Yes,
we love you.
Get well soon. So the stuff we came here to talk about. Started with Atlanta. We had full odds for Atlanta, Jeff. We had all of our stuff that we got to bet on. You and I flubbed miserably. We made fun of Isaiah for putting all of his eggs in Kevin Harvick's basket, and guess what happened?
Kevin Harvick took his basket and went home. I mean, he kind of kicked everybody's butt. And the thing about Atlanta now, the last four races at Atlanta, it's been Brad Keselowski or Kevin Harvick. Those two guys have really dominated there, and the Fords have been really strong.
And Brad was phenomenal. He was up front. Brad was in one of those positions where, like Chase Elliott was the week before at the Coke 600. What do? Brad was leading the race, had to pit. Guys didn't. Guys did. Brad came back to a 9th place finish. But we talked with Jonathan Dontoble about chalk on betting. The chalk was up top there. The top threes were plus 175.
The only guy that really didn't factor in as much, and we thought he would, was Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott started on the front row. He led like the first 27, 28 laps, and then he kind of just seemed to fade after that. And he was which really surprised me that he was not more in contention in Atlanta.
Well, I've been saying he's the hottest guy in the sport. He started out the hottest guy in the sport, led off the bat, won the first stage, everything looked great, and then faded away. But what you did still have to notice, though, Hendrick Motorsports, Motley.
Oh, they're still running strong.
Chase didn't win. He finished 8th. Jimmy Johnson finished 7th. Jimmy was running well. Alex Bowman was up there for a minute, had a problem. William Byron early on hit the wall, got a flat, had to come in, so bad day for him. But Hendrick Motorsports, are they creeping up into that Joe Gibbs? I don't say Stuart Haas. I say Kevin Harvick.
They're creeping up, but I do believe right now. Kevin Harvick and those Penske cars look really good. And we're going to talk a bit later about Martinsville, but Ryan Blaney probably had as good a car as anybody.
Ryan Blaney looked good
in Martinsville on Wednesday night. So I don't know that I'm ready to put the Hendrick camp there yet. Now, here's the thing, though. Kevin Harvick is really the only one that's shining. Now,
Stuart Haas is Kevin Harvick.
Now, Clint Boyer has been one of the more unlucky drivers out there this year, but we've not seen much else out of the other Stuart Haas cars other than Kevin Harvick.
Eric Almirola is one of those guys that, unfortunately, he finishes 11th, 12th, 10th. He's like 9th in points.
But I guess they were all having problems. All the Stuart Haas cars were having issues last night.
When you have a problem that is company wide, they're trying something.
Didn't work. Failed. In fact, I don't believe they had a car in the top 10 last night when the race was over.
Harvick
did he? I think he fell out of the top 10 at the very end of the race.
Yeah, he did fall out of the top 10. That's right. Because it was a battle with Jimmy Johnson and Darrell Wallace to
right.
top 10.
But nevertheless, I mean, and when you go talk about Atlanta, and then we're going to talk about Homestead coming up, I mean, there are some similarities in those tracks. In fact, Kyle Busch even said after the race, he said, Kyle Busch ran really well at Atlanta. He finished second at Atlanta, and he talked about going to Homestead. He goes, Kevin Harvick, he said, our team, he goes, Martin Truex Jr., he goes, we always run well at Atlanta and at Homestead. So he doesn't want to say that the Toyota situation is fixed because he thinks the Toyotas are a little bit behind. But, drivers are always saying they're behind.
He always is saying that, lobbying.
But we haven't seen the strength, and I will even talk about Martinsville, where we saw, obviously, a dominant performance out of one car from the Joe Gibbs camp. But, man,
well, and
you're talking about two other guys in Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch. I'm not even sure they got in the top 20 last night. Kyle might have eked in about 19th or 20th.
Denny had a problem right off the start with overheating, so he wasn't a factor all night. But going back to Atlanta, Kyle Busch finished second, but he wasn't that strong.
No. He
wasn't a factor all night.
He probably finished second with a fifth-place car.
He finished second with a 6th, 7th-place car, had a good pit stop at the end, got out, beat it, did what he had to do, did the Kyle Busch finish. That's great, to get a second-place finish. But he was not strong. And the Gibbs cars weren't strong.
No, not at all. So it was a Kevin Harvick day, I think.
I look at Atlanta every year. Homestead, Jeff, is the championship race. A lot of guys kind of give leeway, give a little extra berth to the championship 4. They always end up 1-2, battling for it. Okay, with this not being the championship race, I think you will see maybe a little less give and take. A little less of, hey, going to give that guy the room that I gave him. Those 4 guys always get room.
Yeah, in fact, I believe the champion has won
every race
Homestead since they went to the point where whoever won the final race was the champion. Yes. Because you're right, people haven't raced them as hard.
Also, those 4 have been the best cars.
Well, no, that's true.
They couldn't even keep up with them most of the time, but they give them a little more berth when they're coming through a field. Now you're not going to have that. But I look at Atlanta.
Even the year that Jimmy Johnson backed into one, basically, because Carl Edwards took himself and Joey Logano out on that late restart.
But I look at Atlanta and say, okay, high tire wear, hot temperatures, track-sensitive or a temperature-sensitive racetrack, and I look at what's there. Even though it's a D-shaped oval, different style, I look at Homestead and go, hold on, let me go check the results from Atlanta and let me mirror that on what's going to happen at Homestead. Because the tracks, even though they're mile and a half in Homestead, the cool thing about Homestead is it's the most unique mile and a half we have. It's the only one that is actually a perfect oval. It's 2 identical turns with 2 straight straightaways. There is no other mile and a half that we have like this.
That's right. There's no tri-oval.
There's no decreasing radius corner, no increasing radius corner, no D-ovals, none of that. It's a true straightaway oval.
Probably Darlington may be the closest, even though it's a shorter difference and it's an egg shape more.
But Darlington has one that's an increasing corner and one that's a decreasing. Right. The way the track is still built.
I'm just saying that's probably the most similar track out there.
But I look at what happened at Atlanta, and I'm going to circle that and go, okay, here's Atlanta's finishes. This track has tire wear. It has temperature sensitivity. It has all the same things that Atlanta has, and I'm going to look at those results and really go off of that for how I set my lineups and how I bet this week at Homestead.
Right. I do believe that's going to be a great barometer. I don't think you can do that at many other racetracks, but I do think Atlanta and Homestead is going to be a great barometer. Now, I'm going to ask you a question from the driver's seat for a second. We saw a really, really hot day at Atlanta. Mm-hmm. We saw Bubba Wallace and Ryan Newman both, on TV. Bubba, he fainted a little bit, and Ryan Newman was completely gassed. We saw a number of guys, even though it was a night race last night in Martinsville, really tired after the race was over. We saw Austin Dillon get out of the car before it was over.
Austin had big problems.
And he had issues, right. So you're going to go and race in Miami in June. And by the way, it's not a night race.
It is
a day race, which they haven't raced a day race at Homestead since I can remember.
I think I was in the last one in the truck series when it was during the day.
So this is going to be the 3rd race in 8 days in this heat. Do we think that driver conditioning could become now we're not going to have that many midweek races after this. There's a couple like the All-Star race in Kansas, but don't we think driver conditioning could actually be a factor in this race on Sunday?
I think mental toughness of the driver will be more than the conditioning. What I always say is that the conditioning of the driver, everybody looks at me and says, oh, I get out of the car, Jeff, and 90% of the time, I'm fine. 99% of the time. There's a mental toughness that goes into some of that physical conditioning. This week, Austin Dillon knocked the crush panel, the right rear, the worst crush panel to knock out of the car. His car filled with exhaust fumes. It was hot. It increased the heat, and he was sucking down carbon monoxide, and he finally couldn't make it. Austin's situation was totally different. But the guys that you're seeing, I mean, even Martin Truex Jr., when he won that race last night at Martinsville, he got out and went, put his hands on his knees for a second.
And that was a night race. I mean,
that was a night race
at Martinsville, which I mean, it was real humid.
I think that you're going to see, I've been saying that the veterans have an advantage because they're used to some of the hotter heats, but these kids have been proving me wrong that they know how to do it. Well, so I don't know if youthful exuberance will beat the experience of the vets, but it's going to be an interesting. It'll be interesting to see how they handle this heat this week, because this is the first time we've had a June race in Homestead.
First June race, first day race.
It's hot.
No, it's definitely
going to be dang hot.
You know, it's interesting you talk about the younger drivers and everything. I thought one interesting thing with Martinsville, Tyler Reddick really impressed me because he ran in the top 10 most of the night, even though his finish didn't necessarily reflect it. I was really impressed with him because I thought for once these young drivers were at an incredible disadvantage, because most of those guys like Custer and Christopher Bell and Reddick have only run the Xfinity Series for the last 3 or 4 years. They haven't run the trucks. And the Xfinity Series hasn't raced at Martinsville in probably...
Well, we had the one race a couple of years ago.
Like, 8-10 years ago since they had...
7, 8 years ago.
None of those guys had raced there in a car other than a truck.
Yes.
So some of those guys had not been to Martinsville in 3 or 4 years. No practice, no qualifying, get in the car and go. I think it sort of showed on some of them, but I was really, really impressed with Tyler Reddick. I've been impressed with him all year. I was really impressed with him last night running in the top 10.
Well, let's talk about Martinsville now. We've kind of wrapped up Virginia and did some stuff there. Let's go to Martinsville, where Martin Truex Jr. proved why Martin Truex Jr. has been so good there lately. He put on a late show that looked phenomenal, drove away from him. He got the win. Ryan Blaney, as you said, Ryan Blaney got a penalty on the last pit stop. Had to go to the tail end of the field, not end of the lead lap, tail end. Thankfully got one caution so he could start at the back of the lead lappers, and drove past 18 cars at Martinsville. And was catching Martin.
You know, and he said after the race, he said, I'd love to have had a shot at him on another restart. I think Ryan Blaney had the best car.
He was pretty darn tough.
And it was very unfortunate. I think what happened, he had a guy come over the wall too soon.
Yeah, that a guy well, they had a bad pit stop.
It was going to be a bad pit
injury.
Stop. So he was still going to come out like 7th or 8th, where he'd been running 1st or 2nd. But you're right. Then you have to go to the rear of the field. And he showed a lot of poise, I thought, last night. And you didn't see him having to root guys out of the way either.
No, he didn't bump and beat. He didn't dirty guys up. He moved a couple guys maybe, but he didn't dirty them up. And like we said, Martin Truex was a plus 550 to win the race, plus 150 on the top 3. Blaney was plus 275 of the top 3. Not a bad number for him, top 3. And Brad plus 155.
And Brad had Brad was an interesting case.
Brad was good.
Brad was out to lunch early in the race.
Then he got good.
And then he got good. And then
he got bad. And then he got good.
Yeah, right. He just kept coming and going. And
you know who was good? Jimmy Johnson won a stage. Ended up with a 10th place finish.
Really good car, and then all of a sudden faded. I'm not exactly sure what happened there, because I really did think in the second stage, I said, shoot, he might win this thing.
How about in 7th place? Let's go through the top 10. Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano 4th, Chase Elliott 5th, Alex Bowman 6th, Matt DiBenedetto 7, William Byron 8, Kurt Busch 9, and Jimmy Johnson 10. But there's a ton of storylines here, Jeff. I mean,
I know one that you talked about a little bit earlier, but I don't know that I actually had realized this. All four Hendrick cars in the top 10.
That was my point. You had Chase, Alex, William, and Jimmy. 4 drivers in the top 10. I can't remember the last time Hendrick Motorsports had that happen.
Well, so how about this? If you really want to get technical about it, you had 4 Hendrick cars and 4 Penske cars.
And I was just going to say, and all 4 Penske cars. Blaney, Brad, Joey, and Matt DiBenedetto. I mean,
Matt DiBenedetto had a great run. He was good. He was strong all night.
Woods Brothers, but you and I, we
know that
the sport knows
an alliance
it's a Penske car.
Penske, correct.
So that's phenomenal right there. That those two, and then you had the 2 interlopers. You had Martin Truex Jr. and you had Kurt Busch. You had one Toyota and Chip Ganassi Chevrolet.
Martin Truex Jr., what he has started doing on these short tracks is sort of phenomenal. He had a horrible record. He had a horrible
80
record.
races, 0 wins.
And I think he's won 3 of the last 5. And if you really think about it, he should have won at Martinsville 2 years ago, and he and Joey Logano.
No, not should have won. Joey moved him out of the way and didn't even wreck him. Joey did not wreck him. He cost him 1 position.
It was sideways on the front straightaway, I believe.
That's okay. That's racing for a W, baby.
But I'm just saying how good Martin's been, and that's the whole point. I understand whoever gets the checkered flag gets a checkered flag, but Martin Truex Jr. has really become a really, really good short track racer. In fact, Martin Truex Jr. is a guy who is good everywhere. He's become a good road racer. He's a good short track guy. We know what he can do on the mile and a half. The only thing we really haven't seen him do great on is places like Daytona and Talladega.
Super speedways. And a few things on Martin, because we didn't do Martinsville odds or anything. But Martin Truex was, to win the race, was plus 550, top 3 150. His group matchup, he was plus 245. Toyota to win was plus 140, which that number is going to start. It's much different than last year where we had Chevrolet at like plus 400. Right. Those numbers are evening up, and he had a head-to-head versus Denny Hamlin at minus, and Denny was minus 1. Denny was the favorite at minus 120.
Well, and as much as we want to talk about those 4 Hendrick cars and the 4 Penske cars and Truex winning the race, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch both. And I know Denny had a little bit of an overheating problem.
Did I say the right Busch? No. There's no Kurt Busch in the top 10.
Kurt is in the top 10. No Kyle Busch in the top 10.
No.
Kyle Busch finished like 18th or 19th. He was
not good.
He went a lap down before there were 100 laps into the race. I was shocked to see that. You just do not used to see not only him but that team with that crew chief. Just very surprising to me.
No, it was definitely. There's a lot of storylines. Michael McDowell finished 14th.
Michael McDowell had a great run. Bubba Wallace had a great run all night.
John Hunter Nemechek had a great run.
John Hunter Nemechek was running well.
And Bubba Wallace was battling for a top 10 with Jimmy. He actually said in an interview after the race, he goes, look at how far, look, we're not Kyle Busch who gets mad at second. Bubba goes, we're in a team that doesn't have the funding, has been working hard to get back to that upper echelon, and he's beating on Jimmy Johnson's rear bumper to get a top 10 finish.
Door handle for top 10 right there at the end of the race. You can't get any better than that.
You can't get any better than that. And he's been doing very well. That team and him have been doing very well since we've come back racing. There's some things that are going.
He's probably emerging as the best single car team out there.
Well, and that's one of those things where single car teams. He is a Richard Childress.
I don't consider the Wood brothers a single car team.
No.
Now I don't think his alliance with Childress is nearly as strong as DiBenedetto's is with Penske.
They're on campus.
Okay.
I mean, their cars are on campus, but they do have their own building. They do their own thing where Woods Brothers is integrated inside Penske. So it is a little separate.
And we've seen a lot more out of the Childress cars this year anyway. I mean, Austin Dillon last night notwithstanding, obviously he had issues. We saw Tyler Reddick run really, really well. We talked about him earlier until he sort of faded late. But to see Bubba, if you want to call him a Childress car then, he was the best in show last night.
But I'll tell you what, the group matchups would have been fun to have. I would have loved for us to be able to talk about group matchups at Martinsville. You got to figure Group F, which would normally have a Michael McDowell, Ty Dillon, the usual suspects, Darrell Wallace Jr. in there.
Chris Buescher might have been in there, and Chris Buescher ran well last night.
Chris Buescher, there was some. I'll tell you, a lot of these guys these teams are starting to catch up to the bigger teams right now, and it looks pretty darn good for what we have coming in the future.
Well, when you see a race and you got Michael McDowell, Chris Buescher, and Bubba Wallace having a better night than Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, or Matt Kenseth,
that's a big deal. Matt Kenseth did not do well. We actually have the group matchups from Martinsville right now. Alex Bowman winning Group C over. I would have probably picked Jimmy Johnson in that group, so that helped me. William Byron Group D was a big favorite at plus 180. He beat Eric Almirola, Eric Jones, and Matt Kenseth. And the Group A, there's where we had Martin Truex, of course. That's I would have put him as a favorite in that one. I mean, I can't believe he was one of the center dogs. And then Group B, Ryan Blaney beating Kevin Harvick. I would not have picked Ryan Blaney to win that group. And then, of course, our favorite groups, Tyler Reddick. I probably would have picked Tyler to win that group. He was the favorite.
Ryan Blaney's won his group 2 weeks in a row at least.
He's been doing well.
And I think Ryan Blaney is he's knocking on the door to start winning more races. How
about Group F, though? Had John Hunter Nemechek as a plus 185 when they went off. This is off of DraftKings, by the way, these numbers. He was a favorite at 185, John Hunter. That's how far that team has come, that he is the favorite in a Group F, working his way towards Group E.
Yeah, I think you're going to start looking at, if they're going to keep those 4 together in Group F, I think you're really going to start looking at Bubba Wallace almost every week. That team has started to find something. They are running really well. I mean, I know he's motivated, but that team's running really well right now.
No, they're running well. Richard Petty Motorsports is getting a little, we had the big blow up with Blue Emu over the iRacing stuff, and we were like, oh, dang it, wonder how that's going to hurt Richard Petty because they need sponsorship.
Seems like they're over. Everybody's kissed and made up in that situation.
Well, hopefully. And now you end up with, them. Look, this is a performance-based industry. You and I know that. If you don't perform, you don't get money. They're performing to a level that they're going to be able to get some more money. And when bettors are now like we've talked about from the get-go about why we do Gone Racin'. Bettors want to pay attention to that driver, which means TV needs to pay attention to that driver, which means running 10th and 11th, he should get a little bit of coverage because he's running to win a group, to battle with a 5-time champion. Those are things that make the whole sport healthier and stronger. No,
absolutely. You're exactly right. And I think that's why we're seeing some of those guys that we don't talk about that often that are starting to run well. They get more TV time.
Yeah.
And if you get more TV time, that equates into more people, more eyeballs on you, and then the sponsors are going to come along, which means a little bit more money for a little bit more research and development, and it all kind of snowballs into making you better.
So we broke down the Atlanta race and the Martinsville race. Now we get to delve into we'll go into the top to the win the race at Homestead when we come back. So I kind of had fun with that. That was a lot of fun.
It is. It was 2 fun races this week.
A lot of fun races.
A lot of fun.
When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about who's going to win this race this week at Homestead-Miami Speedway.
back to our weekly NASCAR show, live from the sportsbook at the South Point Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Now, back to Gone Racin.
And let's jump right back in, folks. Gone Racin, Brendan Gaughan, Mr. Jeff Motley. Microphone in hand this time.
Got my microphone?
Yes, we got it. Yep. We got everything.
We're good. It's working. It's working.
Shirt is on correctly now. That's not inside out.
Like I said, we've been a hot mess today.
Yeah.
So
trust us, we're professionals.
Yep.
So talking about the Dixie Vodka 400.
Are we really professionals?
I get called that once in a while.
All right.
Maybe
Sorry.
not.
I digress.
Yeah. We're going to talk about the Homestead race this weekend, and this is what we're here for. Talk about the odds to win this race. Unfortunately, this week again, Jeff, because of the race on Wednesday, we don't have group matchups or head-to-heads posted yet, so we're going to have to go off of just the DraftKings top three and the winner of the race. And basically the winners of the race, it looks almost like it should. It's a little chalky, but that's the way it needs to be right now because they're showing the strength. Kevin Harvick is plus 400, Martin Truex Jr. 500, Kyle Busch 550, Chase Elliott 700, with Joey Logano 750. Then you get to some double digits and some numbers that I like on some people that I think can do well with them. 10-1 of Denny Hamlin, Brad Kay, 12-1 Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, Jimmy Johnson at 20. And then you got Kurt Busch 25, Clint Boyer, William Byron, Eric Jones 40-1s, Matt Kenseth 50. I'm kind of fading on him a little bit as we were strong when he came back. But I like to get down there. You got 66-1 on Matt DiBenedetto, and as strong as he's been running everywhere, he's going to get one of these soon.
He's going to win a race.
He's going to win a race.
I think he's probably the next guy who has not won, who I think we're going to see in victory lane. I agree. I think it's going to be DiBenedetto. I love that 66-1. You know, a couple guys where I see real value. I think Ryan Blaney at 12-1 to me is really good value, and I like Alex Bowman at 20-1. I think there's good value there on Alex Bowman.
Bowman won California Speedway. California or Phoenix?
Well, this year he won in Phoenix.
Won at Phoenix.
But we know he won in Chicagoland last year, which is somewhat
been very strong this year. Like the Hendrick cars are strong, and Chase Elliott really. I mean, look at what Chase did at Charlotte, at Darlington, at all these races. Chase has been strong, and even Chase Elliott. I mean, his numbers now show it. He's down at a 700, but I do like Alex Bowman at 20-1. And we keep talking about it. Will Jimmy Johnson at 20-1 be a guy that comes back and gets one?
You know, and he could. I mean, we've seen Jimmy obviously show some strength pretty much everywhere he's been. He's shown a lot stronger. You know, we saw what a good run he had at Darlington until he kind of crashed himself out at Darlington. So I definitely think Jimmy's a guy you can look at. Pretty impressive to see all those Hendrick cars up there. William Byron even at 40-1. He's been running a little bit better. Those seem like some pretty tall odds for guys that Eric Jones is another guy that is probably going to be, running top 10. At some point during the day, maybe part of the day. And you never know when these guys are going to pop up there. And next thing you know, they're in the top 3, top 4. They hit it right on the pit stop, or they get in the right line on a late restart.
Like Brad Keselowski, winning races that you said he was the accidental winner, but he's there when it mattered, where it needed to be. And like I said, I'm going to go back and look at the Atlanta race and say, okay, well, Ryan Blaney. He's 10-1. Ryan Blaney right now is at a 12-1.
12-1.
He was 4th and was fast in Atlanta.
Was really fast.
Brad Keselowski pitted because the pit cycle, or because the way it worked out, he was the victim of being in the lead on that last caution. And Brad Keselowski is 10-1. Those are great numbers on two guys that are phenomenal there.
Well, and I got to believe it right now. If you're Ryan Blaney, you have a lot of confidence right now in what you're doing. I mean, like you said, he ran very well at Atlanta. He had an incredible run at Martinsville. And I know we're not comparing Martinsville to Homestead, but we do like to talk about momentum here. And I do believe Ryan Blaney, while he hasn't been in victory lane, I think Ryan Blaney's got a lot of momentum, a lot of real positive momentum. He's certainly working so well with his new crew chief. Todd Gordon getting over there, it's been great for them. I just think that Ryan Blaney is a guy you better look out for.
And once again, go on the Penske team. Brad Keselowski really strong there, and Joey Logano. So those are all guys that you can look at that whole organization and say that. And we talked Hendrick and Penske. Chase Elliott's got 4 races at Homestead. He's got 2 top 10s, 1 top 5 in 4 data points.
Well, and you made an interesting point earlier that I don't really think can be understated, that all these Homestead races that have been that season finale, you're right. Guys have, for the most part, gotten out of the way of the 4 guys going for the championship. So really, you pretty much knew who you were racing for the win. That's not going to be the case on Sunday.
And the heat. And look, turn 4, as a driver, Jeff, turn 4 at Homestead is one of those that's a tricky place. It looks normal. It's so loose there. You lose so much grip. You're going to have maybe 25 degrees more track temperature. You're going to see guys slipping and sliding. You're going to see guys falling out of the seat. This is going to be exciting to watch.
But the one thing they probably will avoid, I remember when they would run those late races down there, they would usually have some glare. Now, granted, we'd already turned the clocks.
Holy cow, glare!
Right, but remember, we had already turned the clocks, into daylight savings time or away from daylight savings time. None of that's going to factor in. So the sun should be high enough that glare that's usually a problem won't come into play.
That glare, that wasn't even just glare. That was amazing stuff. All right, there's some of the odds to win the race. When we come back, we're going to delve into the DraftKings top 3 and a little bit more when we return on Gone Racin'.
Welcome back to our weekly NASCAR show, live from the Sportsbook at the South Point Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Now, back to Gone Racin'.
And this program is brought to you by Roxor Off-Road, a side-by-side unlike any other. Visit Roxor, R-O-X-O-R, offroad.com today. That's roxoroffroad.com. And welcome back, everybody. Brendan Gaughan, Jeff Motley. That was one of the easiest reads right there, by the way.
That's a lot shorter than the ones that we read the last couple of weeks.
Quick picks, but it's still not my Manscaped. But I don't mind. Listen, I'm an off-road guy. I like a little Roxor off-road. I looked at their website. Cool-looking little Jeep machine.
Maybe we should go take it up sometime.
Don't threaten me with it.
Whenever you have free time.
Oh, yeah, there's the
busiest man in town.
So now we are off into the DraftKings top 3, and these are the only two things we get to bet on this week on the Gone Racin' show on our stuff. So let's delve right into it, shall we? We got Kevin Harvick is the favorite in the top 3 at plus 115. No surprise there. But Jeff Motley, still a plus number. We don't see anybody such a big favorite that they're in the minus like we've seen Kevin or Kyle Busch or Martin Truex the last couple of years. So still a plus line. Martin Truex at 140, Kyle Busch 150, Chase Elliott 200, Joey Logano 225, Denny Hamlin with Brad Keselowski at 275. I like that. Ryan Blaney at 300. Then Alex Bowman, Jimmy Johnson at plus 500s with Kurt Busch 650, Clint Boyer 750, and that rounds out the single-digit guys. There's actually some.
All right, so let's talk about Kevin Harvick for a minute. Kevin Harvick's got 19 starts at Homestead. He's got 11 top 5s. Yeah. He's got 17 top 10s in 19 starts. Average 6.4 finish at Homestead.
You ready for a better stat?
But Brendan, he's only won once.
That's okay. You ready for a better stat for Kevin Harvick?
Okay.
10 races, 10 top 10s. Let me give you his last 7 races. First, second, third, fourth, third, fourth.
Well, now, the one thing what we talked about in the previous segment, though, he been running for the championship every time he's gone there, and guys have gotten out of his way a little bit. Now, that being said, he's still really good.
First, second, third, fourth, third, fourth. That's top 3s in 5 of the 7 races I just named.
Look, there's a reason he's the favorite to win the race. There's a reason he's the favorite to finish in the top 3.
I would bet that at 115 right now because it's only going to go into the negative numbers.
I agree.
The action is only going to go that way. You in another 2 days, you are going to get Kevin Harvick at minus 125 for a top 3.
Yeah, I would say, there's a lot of guys out there that are probably glad Homestead is not the final race of the year, but at the same time, the final race of the year will be in Phoenix, which Kevin owns more than he owns Homestead.
Kevin looks at either one and says, "Yes, please, thank you."
Absolutely.
So, Harvick right there. But how about some of these other guys, though? You get in the double digits. We've been talking. Matt DiBenedetto, 16-1. William Byron, 11-1. Matt Kenseth, 12.
Eric Jones, 11-1, I think is a really interesting one because Eric Jones has run well on these 1.5-mile tracks. He's been pretty strong there, and I think Eric Jones is a guy you got to watch out for who I think could be in contention to win.
Look, he's done well there in the other series. He's had to win those races to be there. Eric Jones only has 3 data points there, but he's got a 21st and a 27th his first couple years, and then a 3rd place last year at Homestead. So,
that's what I mean. It's
he could be strong. Is Joe Gibbs, though, as strong as Penske or the Hendrick right now, Camp?
Well,
Martin Truex notwithstanding.
I will say this. Keep in mind, Kyle Busch finished second at Atlanta. I know he didn't have a great car. He finished second. Martin Truex Jr. had a really good run at Atlanta. Denny Hamlin was running pretty well at Atlanta. In fact, I think he had a bad pit stop and lost 4 or 5 positions, and he really couldn't make them up. So I think the Gibbs cars will be just fine at Homestead. I think sometimes we kick a little bit of dirt on the Gibbs cars, and maybe we do it a little too soon because that's when they come up and surprise you. And like Kyle Busch did last season, and then we thought Kyle Busch was pretty much out of everything, and then the next thing you know, he ends up winning
did exactly what he said he was going to do.
Winning the whole thing.
That's exactly what Jimmy Johnson used to do. Fade in the middle and then run strong in the end. Kyle Busch, the last 5 races, 5 races, first, 6th, 2nd, 4th, and 1st. 3 of those were top 5s. So there's the chalk is there for you to take those guys and just ride out the easy pick. But I still think there's a chance to take a flyer on one of these guys on a bigger number. But you can give me an argument to go all chalk up there, and you could win all of them.
What's interesting? The only 2 active drivers with multiple wins at Homestead are Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, 2 Gibbs cars. Now, of course,
really?
Denny won his before it was the final. It was the race where the championship is set up. Right?
Well, Jimmy Johnson has wins there.
Well, Jimmy's not on our. Where's Jimmy?
Yeah,
on our list? He's got 1 win on our list here, though.
He won in 2016, and that was when he won his last championship.
Right,
was there. So, and Jimmy's got a couple wins there, or got a win there. But it's
right. But I'm just saying, only 2 guys with multiple wins there, and it's Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, unless my stats are wrong. I've been
Kyle Busch, the only ones with multiple, yes.
That's what I'm saying. The only ones with multiple wins are Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin. So it kind of shows what I'm trying to say is how wide open Homestead can be.
And remember what we said for years, Denny Hamlin. We've also said if Denny always faded in the playoffs. And we've said that for a while.
He could get in the Final Four.
If he could get to the Final Four, he was going to be a threat when he got there. And Denny Hamlin, 10 races there, 7 top 10s.
All I'm saying is I would not discount the Gibbs cars this week.
I'm not discounting them.
Look, Harvick is clearly the guy that should be the favorite. Yes. But those 3 Gibbs cars behind him, I think they are all going to be right there. And maybe 4. Eric Jones might be there with them too.
Would you take anybody deeper down in the odds? I mean, I don't see it. Look, I love John Hunter Nemechek. He's running so well, but I don't see him at 40-1 getting into the top 3. And by the way, John Hunter's 40-1 for a top 3, where Christopher Bell is 33-1 to a top 3. Knock, knock. Hello, somebody check your odds.
Well, I was going to say John Hunter certainly run better.
But I mean, a Tyler Reddick or an Austin Dillon. You know, we've said how much. Are we saying that it's good enough to go take a 16-18-1 shot for a top 3, or is that still not a deep enough number for me to take?
I would probably stay away from those guys at this racetrack. I like those guys when they start running, like Tyler Reddick, for example. I'm really going to enjoy when Tyler Reddick is going to tracks for the second time, because what he's done the first time has really, really impressed me. These tracks like Atlanta and Homestead, where they're only racing once a year, I think when Tyler Reddick goes back in 2021 and they keep the momentum going at Childress, I think you're going to look at him almost every week. And I think some of these racetracks that we're going to go to later in the year, I tell you what's going to be interesting for him is when we get to like a place like Pocono, another place where I don't think they've run a lot of Xfinity races at Pocono. Maybe they have. They usually run ARCA and stuff like that and some trucks. But they're going to run 2 races in 2 days. I'm going to be really curious to see how these guys do.
That second race will definitely be one to look at. It's hard for me to get away from the chalk on this sort of thing, because you could pick Kevin, Martin, Kyle, and you could end up with winning all 3 of them because they're the guys that tend to be there every race. But I think Jimmy Johnson at 500, as well as he's been running, I think is one that I could keep in my conversation. A Brad Keselowski at 271, a Chase Elliott at 200. I think there's a few that I'm circling here for our bets in the next segment that I think we can definitely take advantage of if we need.
No, absolutely. And it, like you said, I mean, look, 275 on Keselowski or Denny Hamlin or 300 on Ryan Blaney. I mean, that still is pretty good numbers. That's a good return.
No, we definitely can. You can make some money on that, even if since we only have the top 3s and the wins to go off of, which, we always got to at least throw a win in there in our picks. But when we come back, we'll talk about our picks and how we did last week with Atlanta. More to come on Gone Racing.
back to our weekly NASCAR show, live from the Sportsbook at the South Point Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Now, back to Gone Racin.
And welcome back in, everybody. Gone Racin, Brendan Gaughan, Jeff Motley, South Point Casino, VSiN Studio.
2 weeks in a row, we've been in an open casino. With people walking around behind us.
Around, doing great TV here. If you're watching on the VSiN YouTube channel or anything like that, you actually see a much emptier South Point Sportsbook than you're used to. But guess what? There's still people.
There are people, and we're gonna get even more sports other than NASCAR. We got PGA's coming back.
Yep.
It's come back this weekend, and hopefully they're going to be playing some hockey and some basketball soon. So
we'll at least have the network will be coming back to life and a fire-breathing dragon soon, hopefully. But this is normally when we get to talk a little bit about group matchups or a little about head-to-heads. Unfortunately, folks, remember, Jeff and I filmed this on Thursdays in the morning, and with a race on Wednesday, none of the odds makers have head-to-heads or group matchups out yet.
We should have them next week for Talladega.
It should be back to normal
we
for
don't
a
have
while.
a Wednesday race yet.
And then next week we get to talk about how I'm betting on myself to win in every category, because that's what I do.
So you can get suspended before the race starts.
We've
been down that road before.
Yeah. If you can't guess why I'm delaying because we have to talk about how we did last week with our bets at Atlanta. And we've already mentioned that Isaiah, amazingly enough, ran into health issues right after he
got so excited.
Flat out put it on us. If you're watching on the VSiN YouTube channel or the streams or any of the VSiN networks, Isaiah went 4 for 5 picks at a plus 11.1 last week, and we made fun of him incessantly for putting all his eggs in Kevin Harvick's basket. And apparently we should have listened, because he had Ford to win, which was Kevin Harvick. He had Kevin Harvick to win Group A. He had Kevin Harvick to win the race. And then he got Kyle Busch to win. Or to win Group.
Isaiah, congratulations. I'm going to follow my sword here. Great job.
Phenomenal job. And look what happens when you beat us. You are no longer the producer. We now have lovely Karina. And Karina, who I'm trying to get the crew back there to put the camera that everybody sees our producers on, and they've told me, as she's shaking her head, they will not throw to that camera no matter what I do.
She might be in witness protection. That could be the witness protection program.
Gotcha. Never mind.
Maybe her name's not really Karina.
That's okay. We'll just call her Karina then, and we'll take her off camera, because there could be some federal investigators looking somewhere.
But she did make picks. She did make picks this week.
And so we will see if Karina returns next week, because Karina does have, we're not calling it the pick crew. These are all on Karina. So we will let her pick last, of course, because Isaiah put her in that position to be in first. And then you and I both at a -5 units on the day.
Yeah,
so,
and we're just going to tell Karina, if she does beat us, have her health insurance card ready.
Have her insurance paid up, just in case. You never know with us. I mean, and 2 broken legs. Just saying. So, Mr. Motley, we'll go from the reverse order. And since I was the only one that won anything a couple weeks ago, we'll let you kick off first.
Well, obviously, and we got to qualify this like we have, that we can't, since we can't do groups and head-to-heads, obviously we know we're going to lose some bets. We hope that we can win enough bets to offset it. So my 5 picks this week, I'm actually going to pick 3 race winners.
3 race winners.
Well,
going for the big. No.
Well, here's the deal. If I get one of these 3, I win money. If I get one of these 3, I win money. So
only this way to go.
I'm going to go Kevin Harvick at plus 400. I really like the plus 400 on a guy that's been the most dominant guy at Homestead.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go with the guy that won the race last year, Kyle Busch, at plus 550.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with Chase Elliott at plus 700, because I like that number on Chase Elliott. My other 2 picks, I'm going to go into the top 3. Also sticking again with Kyle Busch at plus 150.
Putting all your eggs in one basket.
Well, two eggs in a basket, I guess. And then I'm going to go Brad Keselowski with a top 3 at plus 275. Okay. So, hate not being able to do the groups this week, because I love the groups, but it is what it is, and those are my picks. And if I can pick a race winner, then I'm going to come home making money no matter how you slice it.
All right. Well, I will go second then, since once again Karina gets to pick last due to Isaiah's thumping of us. And I'm going to go a lot of chalk, but I'm going to mix it up kind of a little bit where I don't put my eggs in a basket. I still believe that's the right way to bet when you do this. I am going to take Martin Truex Jr. at plus 500 to win the race. I think that Martin once again showed this week at Martinsville how good he was. He was 3rd at Atlanta the week before. He was also good there. I'm putting him to win the race. And then I'm going to the top 3 for the next 4. I am getting Kevin Harvick at plus 115. We just talked about the stats. I mean, I don't want him to win, but you think he's going to be top 3 no matter what. Chase Elliott at plus 200, hottest guy in the sport. I've said that repeatedly on this show. I got to ride that hot hand. I'm going Brad Keselowski at 275, another hot driver who is always there at the end of every race in the last 5 races. And then I'm going Jimmy Johnson at plus 500. He's running well enough, and the Hendrick organization is running well enough for me to say, I think that 2 Hendrick guys in that can be very strong for me. And I've got a lot of chalk across that board, but I like the heavy hitters right now. I don't see a random right now jumping into that at this point right now at Homestead. And with no further ado, since I am not allowed, come on, throw the camera. No. Oh, there it is. Okay, that's all I got.
Was that half a second?
That's okay. If you were watching, you got to see it. You got to see Karina just for a brief second. She said she was going to put the sticky note over the deal, and
I think she forgot the fact that once she's on there, that people could hit pause.
That's right.
And
they can hit pause. So. She was there. There's proof. She was there. Witness protection. Watch out. So Karina's top picks are all top 3s. She is just sticking in the top 3. And we are not differentiated much between the 3 of us. We are all sticking in about the same world this week. She has Kyle Busch at plus 150 and Kevin Harvick at plus 115. So she's got, the 2 guys we've talked about repeatedly. She's got Martin Truex Jr. at plus 140. So she's got the top 3 guys right there.
She really went out on a limb.
She's going out on a limb here. She's got Joey Logano at plus 225. She skipped over Chase Elliott. And she did go all the way down to my pick at Jimmy Johnson, which bums me out, so we can't be at least differentiated a little bit. But she did. But once again, this is a race that we are all saying we think that the heavy hitters and the chalk will rock.
And that's what we're saying. And we're basing a lot of that off of what we've seen at Homestead in the past.
And we're basing it off what we saw at Atlanta a couple weeks ago.
But Homestead's been a championship race. I think that's the one thing I'm looking forward to being a little bit different about this race is it's not the championship race.
That and the heat for me.
The heat's certainly going to be different. The heat's certainly going to be different. And so you think that track's going to get incredibly slick?
Yes. It's already incredibly slick. I think Homestead to me is the second most temperature sensitive racetrack we race on. With, of course, as you remember from being a little race fan, Charlotte. When we talk about Charlotte being temperature sensitive, I mean, it was
which is what always made the 600 so interesting because you would go from day to night.
Day to night.
But we're probably not going to see nightfall at Homestead because that race is going to be a 3:30 start in Miami. It'll be over by 6:30 or 7. You might get a little bit of shadow, but the sun doesn't go down until like 8:15 down there.
I was trying to do in my head where that glare. You were talking about the glare at Homestead.
I just don't think you're going to see it. I just don't think the sun's going to get that low before the race is over.
I want to impress on people the glare thing, Jeff, for a second. It shouldn't affect your betting. So the glare at Homestead, and if you're watching, beautiful sunset in that picture over Homestead-Miami. Oh my gosh, that was gorgeous, that picture. Whoever took that, great job.
Photoshop.
But what they don't understand is when you come out of turn 4 there, the sun goes and it absolutely crushes you down. I've actually run the entire straightaway from turn 4 all the way into turn 1 where you can see the sun setting under that turn 1 set of suites right there where you literally, your spotter is telling you how far away people are because you are completely blind. Take your windshield at home, take your garden hose, spray it, let the water drops build for 3 days, then try to drive at sunset and watch the sun come through that without being able. That is what it's like to drive at Homestead when that sun's setting. So the end of this race, if it's going to be about...
I don't want to go all science, but I mean, the Earth is positioned differently in June as opposed to November. So you're going to have a lot of different factors in that you're going to find. And they're not spinning the track around. I don't mean that. But the Earth's going to be positioned differently.
I'm trying to see where the
You also, usually you would probably see nightfall hitting because of the turn of the clocks somewhere between 5 and 5:30 and 6 p.m. Well, there's not going to be nightfall until between probably 8 and 8:30.
That's sun.
So I think that race is probably going to end between 6:30 and 7 unless they have some reason that it gets delayed. Now, granted, you could have a rain delay, you could have a red flag or something like that extends the end of the race.
No more rain delays, please.
But yeah, exactly.
No more rain delays.
But so I'm just saying, I think that I don't think there's going to be any comparison. The race conditions are going to be so completely different. Like these crew chiefs are not even going to be able to use the same notes.
That notebook is definitely going to have an issue with this heat, with all that.
And again, no practice, no qualifying.
No, I think drivers are starting to get used to it now. I think it's kind of fun for them. Motley, when we come back after Homestead, we will have no Wednesday race. So when we return to talk Talladega, we will have the full gamut of what we normally love to talk about, which is group matchups, head-to-head matchups, all the rest of our stuff. And as we've mentioned, foreshadowing, we will have an interloper returning. I feel better now because I know that we'll actually be in the race guaranteed now.
Well, I want to know how many times you will make fun of me next week for calling Talladega a crapshoot, which, by the way, I saw a press release this week where you were actually quoted as saying people think it's a crapshoot, but it's not.
People think.
There was a nice little press release on Brendan this week about racing at Talladega. No, I always get excited on race week when you're racing because it's fun to have you in the race. So we're going to be excited to have you back in the seat next week. You, and you. Well, they won't put you in a group. They probably won't put you in a head-to-head.
We need to work on. Can we get can somebody work on NASCAR?
Can we get Group K? Like Group K?
Wow, Group K. I've been top 10 2 out of the last 3 restrictor plate races, and
Then I would pick you in that group.
That's just not. That's not cool.
I love you, brother.
And behind the glass, they're all laughing right now. Behind the hockey glass in the VC studio, they're laughing, going, "Ha ha, Group K."
We kid because
you guys Group K.
We kid because we care. Remember that. I wish you guys could see the look on Brendan's face right now.
But no, I will have some fun. The Beard Oil team, we will be back. Jeff, we actually we were a little nervous for the last couple weeks because we have to be locked into the race by points. And some teams were starting to catch us in points, and we actually would have been not able to race because no qualifying.
Did you send BJ McLeod a note?
I did not
don't even show up?
I did not send a text or a note to BJ McLeod, but I do love you, BJ McLeod. I do love you either way, but thank you because you made the Beards sleep better at night. That's it for today. That's it for Homestead-Miami. Thank you for being with us. We will return next week and talk about Talladega and break down how good or bad we did on Gone Racin. Thanks for joining.